All right. This is Daniel Young, owner and operator of Adapted Perspective and Adapted Perspective on Facebook. And I am shooting raw video in my house. So the shelf you see behind me is not an image, it is an actual shelf that I made for that matter. If you hear a cat in the background, which you might because he gets chatty at night, I have an actual cat, and if he's willing, I'll put him on screen because he is a slightly hairless cat named Harry. Um, Moving forward in the background of what I want to offer before I get into some other stuff, I want to get into the meaning of adapted perspective. There's a huge backstory in how the evolution of the name and really the evolution of the whole thing came into being. Um, and for me to talk about it here would just take forever because I like to talk about stuff that interests me, and seeing as my business interests me, I can talk about it for a while. So in order to kind of shortcut through all that, I'm going to start posting past blog content because I did used to have a blog titled Adapted Perspective. And with everything going on, it was honestly much easier to trim down how many places I interact with. Because if I'm generating content for Facebook and then generating content for here and then generating content for other things, I need to trim. I need to make it easier on me. Um, so I'm going to offload the blog, post the stuff to Facebook, and have it as backstory and resource, and yeah, and go from there. The the impetus, I guess you could say, of adapted perspective was our global forced lockdowns. And there is a ton of emotion behind how the business was created. Um, all of that, not a political thing here. Um, but I'm happy to talk politics, just not here. That's not the point. It's, gosh, God showed me, He got my attention in a way that I didn't have a way out. I didn't have a distraction. I didn't have anything that would draw my attention. And He got my attention, and I realized how much I wasn't at home. And it's not that He forced me to see something, but at the same time, I was home a lot more than I normally am. And I saw how much impact I can have at home in a solid week. And He completely changed my perspective, where I went from like nose to the ground in a profession, loving every minute of it, to trying to find a way out. And thankfully, I found a way out. So, so yeah, there's a huge, long backstory on how everything went down. Nothing bad. Like, I didn't have a fallout and then have a giant fight. None of that drama. Just a lot of emotional backstory. So if you're into that kind of stuff, I'll post the information on my Facebook page, and I'll put that link at the bottom. Moving on. Welcome to the channel. I believe that it's my purpose, my calling, to help you identify your dreams and help you reach your financial freedom destination and maintain it so that you can pass on your wealth to the next generation. So, what does adapted perspective really mean? It's how we ought to approach life. You take what you know, you learn something new, you be challenged, and then you adapt your way of thinking and you apply the adaptation. It's been integral to our success. It's an ongoing journey, it's an ongoing learning situation. Like, there is always room for more knowledge, there's always room for more content, there is always room for growth. Um, Gosh, bare bones, having an adaptive perspective means you look at something from a different angle. And when that happens, you get a different view. This is honestly, pick your metaphor. There's tons of them. You can go from standing on the ground, and then when you stand up and tell people like this, tell people how you think about something, that's called getting on a soapbox. Changing your elevation by 4 to 5 inches, like standing on a box, might not seem like a huge thing, but it'll completely change your view. And if you've ever sailed, if you've ever been on a boat, if you've ever been in a canoe, or even if you've ever floated in a pool, right? Even though everything looks the same, slightly changing your point of view and your reference, just a margin, even though everything else might look the same, that 1 degree of change completely changes your view. And you don't have to like the new view, but having a new view forces you to see something different at a different angle, and then it forces you to adapt to that change. Forced perspective is not an adapted perspective. Forced perspective is how people hold up the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's a camera trick. It's a director's trick of how they force us to see something. That's not this. Okay. First perspective, you get to pull all these fun things that people do on TikTok and everywhere else, and they look like they're holding up the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And it's pizza, not pizza. Sorry, allergies. Um, but forced perspective is also a really good metaphor for what society says about retirement. So if you think about what we've all heard, what we've all been ingrained into, go to school, go to high school, you graduate, and then you have options. You can go to college, and then after college, you can go to grad school, and then after grad school, you can go to doctoral school if that's your route, and then you get a job. Or you finish college, and then you get a job, and then you work your way up the ladder with wherever you are. Okay. Or you leave high school and you go to community college or junior college, and you go there for 2 years. Maybe you end up going to college after that. And then after that, you get a job. Or you leave school and go to technical school. So you learn to be a welder, which a welder will make 6 figures easy. An underwater welder makes more money in a far less time than a teacher does at college. So, but still, you go to technical school, and after technical school, you get a job, right? Or you leave high school and you get a job. In the course of that, so you go to high school, you graduate, whatever the next step is for you, you finish that, you get a job, and then you work for 40 years, and then you retire. In the course of all that school, think of how much you learned on finances, of how to retire earlier, or how to get out of debt earlier, or how to make debt work for you. Nowhere, because school teaches you how to be an employee, and it teaches you to work for 40 years, and then the retirement system will help cover or pay for your retirement. And the truth of the matter is, that's a forced perspective because it's based on the lie that the government or your company will still have money by the time you retire. I'm reading a book now that in 2006, the government was already $70 trillion in debt, and that it couldn't cover Social Security and Medicare. That's a crap ton of money. So if the bulk of our Profits out of the country are going to cover all of these retirement programs. We don't have the money to invest in infrastructure. That's why infrastructure sucks, right? And if we're getting beat on trade and we're getting beat on this and we're getting beat on that, all of that has a bearing because we've set up this, and this will turn political quick. That's not my point. We've set up an entitlement system where people expect the government to cover their retirement. And the government doesn't have the money, so they borrow more money to then pay for everything. And for you and me, when we hit our credit limits, that's the extent of our credit limit. When the government hits their credit limits, they raise their own rates. They raise their own credit limit. They raise the debt ceiling, right? Debt ceiling, think credit card spending limit, right? So we have to increase the debt ceiling so we can then buy more debt so we can pay all these other things. It makes no sense. So if you think the government is here to help you 40 years from now or 10 years from now or 5 years from now, you're lost in the forced perspective. And maybe that information will adapt your perspective or challenge your perspective on how you see your retirement. Are there other ways? Yes. That is our goal. That's my purpose. And my purpose to help you figure out your bigger picture so that you can get from wherever you are to wherever you want to be and then stay there. Because it doesn't matter that you know where you are and I know where I want to be. It's figuring out how to get there and then figuring out how to stay there. Because if you get there and have no system, you'll lose it. Look at every lottery winner. Think of all the lottery winners outside of a couple, right? They've won the lottery and then they're broke because they have no structure. They have no system. It's all the money you could, well, maybe not all the money you could ever want, but it's a crap ton of money all at once with no structure, no purpose, no anything. You buy everything you ever wanted and more. You spend it all and you leave nothing. You go from broke to wealth beyond measure to broke. So the whole, I mean, my business is named just for a reason. It's what I thought was retirement. I'm an athletic trainer by trade. Athletic training, we can get into a different day, but essentially, if you get injured, stub a toe, tear an ACL, concussion, spine, pick your injury. My job is to evaluate it, diagnose it, treat it, meaning like in-house or send to ER or send to doctor, get you back, do rehab, and get you back to life and activity, and make sure you can still play that activity 40 years from now. Like I get you want to play next year, next season, all that. I get that. But the rest of your life is a lot more important than most athletes realize. And that was my purpose. I still help people here and there. I give a ton of advice. But I left the day-to-day practice because I realized, so I'm 42. If I kept doing that until I'm 65 or more, knowing my family's genetics and knowing my family history, there is no way in hell. There is no way in heaven. There is no way on this earth that I will accomplish my dreams and my family's dreams when I retire. And I retire on limited paychecks. I will retire on, I mean, the goal is, the teacher retirement system and whatever else, and that's the goal. But there's no way that would fund the life that I would want at 65, because my dream is to own a hunting business. So that's buy land, build a house, have a workshop, and you run a successful business. And that's the goal, successful business. But even if the business isn't profitable, right? So I still have a business, but I have to be able to fund it. There is no way my limited retirement or my wife's limited retirement is going to cover land, house, shop, business. And to start it at 65, like I retire at 65, fine. In a year, all that happens, knowing my family's history, my body's going to hopefully not be that way. I mean, I work out, I eat decent, I'm fairly healthy. But I can't imagine tooling around and starting a business at 65. It's just not in the cards for me. So there's got to be a different way, and there is a better way. And I mean, honestly, that's the business. It's it's helping you figure out your dreams, helping you figure out your purpose, helping you figure out where you are now and where you want to be, and then putting a plan together to help you get there. And whether that's you pay off a ton of personal debt, or whether you don't have a ton of personal debt, if that's you find a side hustle, you start real estate, you do any number of things. My goals are my goals, your goals are your goals. You shouldn't have to use my plan to help you hit your dreams because we're different people. Now, the system overall, yes, the outline of the system works, the structure works. But I'm not here to push the system to you at the moment. I would love to, but that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is just to help you get that, yes, adaptive perspective means you look at things from a different view. And that also, if you're still banking on your company or the government or somebody else helping you retire, I mean, I hate to break it to you if you're still there, but I really do. You're going to have a rude awakening if you follow the system. So if I can challenge you on anything, I would challenge you to look at the national debt, look at how much we spend on things, look at the government's history and track record of taking money away from teacher retirement or Social Security or Medicare, or using money to pay for one thing, kind of like robbing Peter to pay Paul. If you think the government's anywhere effective in handling money they can't even conceptually visualize, you're going to have a rude awakening. Yeah, we can talk at length on that. So, if we, I mean, it's navigate your finances, so it is based on ships and all that. So pick your ship. You're in the middle, maybe not in the middle of nowhere, but you're between points. Like you're on a journey. Maybe you're not on the right course, and maybe you are on the right course. And everywhere you look around you is just calm water and open sea, semi-cloudless day. You're captaining your boat. You're at the wheel, and you get to figure out where you need to go. So are you on the right path, or are you not? Do you need to change course, or are you okay? Maybe you don't have to change it 180 degrees. Maybe you just need to change it that 1 or 2 degrees. Maybe it may be more severe, right? And since you're in the middle of nowhere, any degree change isn't going to look right, or maybe look different at first. But when you start looking at the clouds, all those little animal shapes you were making in your head, they don't look like the same animals. Somehow that unicorn just turned into a turtle. All right, all the shadows slightly change on your boat. And it'll feel weird at first. It's like, why did I change? Nothing's really different. But when you start to look around, you notice little things, and then the further you get, you realize you're on a different course. Whether you have a year to retire or whether you've got 60 years to retire, right? You can retire a lot earlier than what society tells you. And you can do it on your terms and not society's. So the choice is yours. You can keep doing what you're doing. You can be pushed around by fear, the fear of not having enough, the fear of not being able to pay for your retirement, not being able to cover your kids, whether in high school or out of high school, not being able to pay for this, that, and the other. You can keep getting pushed around by fear and you can stay on the course you're on. Or you can consider a different course and you can be challenged. You can acknowledge that you've got some fears. You can face those fears and you can push back. It's not necessarily like a boxing match. It's not a fight. It's just a different way to think. And in that thinking, it's a different way to grow. You learn a lot, you grow, you learn a lot, you grow. It forces you to see things differently. And the more that happens, the more your perspective changes. And the more you adapt how you're approaching things. Nothing's ever fixed in stone. I mean, your dreams are your dreams. My goal is to have a deer ranch, right? That's my dream. Here's where I am. It only looks like a straight line because that's what we're taught to see, right? If you stare at one spot, you look at the next spot, it's like, wow, that's a straight line. Yeah, but you don't see this, right? It could drop off and come back up and drop off and come back up. But since we look at it far away, it looks like a straight line, but it's not. So it's still your choice. You can stay the way things are. You can be pushed around. You can let fear get the better of you. You can hope the government has your best interest at heart. Okay. Or you can see things a different way. And you can start to see changes you can make. And you can start to see things from a different angle and take a different path. It's your choice. Can't make you do it. If you want to do it, I would love to chat with you. Find me on Facebook, respond on this video. Let's talk. Okay. And honestly, that's it for the video. Pretty short and sweet overall. I mean, I like to talk. So if this is interesting to you, if you want to hear more, consider subscribing or find me on Facebook. Okay. Now, remember, you have the power to change your life and your financial future. Many people will offer to help you, but only you can make the choice to do it. Make it happen. Shock your world. You can do it. Daniel Young, signing off. See you on the next.